Hello, everybody. Welcome to another 12 Days of the Comic Source episode. We're back to our fireside chats with some of my favorite creators, and today we have Zack Kaplan joining us to talk about the plethora of books that he has coming out, just had come out. Like, I was going through before we started chatting, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. You wrote that. That was really good. Oh yeah, I forgot, because I was trying to figure out like what are my favorite things that you've written, and yeah, it's like Sophie's choice, man. It's so hard to to choose. But anyway, hey man, thanks for taking the time. It's always great to chat with you.
Yeah, excited to be here. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, from all the way back, Eclipse from Top Cow, which I highly recommend everybody. It still holds up. It's still just such a fantastic series. But I think currently your two big books that are coming out right now, we have Kill All Immortals, this kind of the sequel, Kill All Immortals 2. It's coming out from Dark Horse. The second issue came out recently. And you've also got Masterminds from Dark Horse, which is a fantastic kind of puzzle, almost that Michael Douglas movie, The Game, reminds me a little bit of that. That's fantastic as well. And there's plenty of like puzzles and riddles in there for everybody to solve. So let's actually start with Masterminds, because I mean I consider myself a relatively intelligent guy, but my God, dude, these riddles that are in there, they're tough. They're tough. So are like,
the book's called Masterminds. I had to go to work. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't phone it in. So yeah, a lot of the book was trying to come up with worthy riddles and puzzles and challenges that would at least make people feel like the title was holding water. So yeah.
Oh, it totally does. I mean, so I gotta imagine that was, you probably had the story before you had all the puzzles.
100%. Yeah. And then sold in the story, and then sat down and went, oh, I gotta go to work. And that was definitely one of the major challenges for this book, was to come up with these different puzzles that the main characters. I mean, it's about it, the premise is about the world's smartest secret society, and it's very much kind of Squid Games but out in the real world. But there's all sorts of different challenges that he faces, and puzzles and riddles and games. It's very much about games, and I've been a gamer for a long time, but I definitely had to roll up my sleeves and come up with some good puzzles. But so far, I think we're keeping everybody on their toes. So I'm glad to hear it. I'd much rather have people say what you're saying than like, hey, these are not that good.
Yeah, no, they're tough, man. It's challenging everybody, but it's a lot of fun. And on top of just being really engaging and immersive with these puzzles, it's a great story. And again, as I was looking back over your body of work, starting with Eclipse and how sci-fi heavy that is, and this is more grounded. We could kind of see this happening in the real world. You hear the conspiracy theories about secret societies and whatever. And I feel like you've definitely grown as a writer as I look over your body work, and we'll talk about some of the other things. Do you have that sense, kind of looking back, or are you too close to it?
That I've grown?
Yeah, that you've grown, and you're kind of, you're not just doing that kind of typical sci-fi thing anymore. You're kind of getting into, kind of branching out into kind of different avenues.
Well, yeah, I think in a couple ways. I mean, one, I am branching out. Certainly Masterminds is a pretty straight thriller, and it's certainly got some mind effery going on there. But I think also in Kill All Immortals is my first true action book, and that's very different. Dark Empty Void was my first horror book. But I do think that that's something I've done. If anyone's been following my work, I think I've got over a dozen different creator-owned books, and I think every single one has been a different genre or subgenre. There have been boxing dramas, there have been with Metal Society, or like sci-fi western with Join the Future. So like I've always looked for new territory and subgenres and mashups as a creator. But I think like, yeah, my understanding of the comics form and my comfort and ability to like move within, the medium and play around with it. Like I definitely feel like I've grown. I'm also always trying to push myself to continue to grow. I'm working on things for next year, and I'm continuing to try to challenge myself. I mean, that's something I really geek out on, is like trying to find ways to use the form and the medium, as best I can to tell the story that I'm telling. So I put a lot of thought into that, which I think is always a good start, and try my best to just keep telling compelling stories and good character drama.
Yeah, I definitely feel like you've kind of carved out a niche for yourself that's a little bit different than maybe any other creator out there, because you mentioned so many of these creator-owned things, and we'll talk a little bit about possible license stuff, because you have done, I know you did an issue of Nightwing, um, but the other part of this, you're kind of diverse in where you're doing your things, but also you have a diversity of artists. Like, there's so many artists that you've worked with. Some of
Yeah,
them have gelled really well, and then you want to do something else, but you always have to wait for schedules to align. But that's something else I think that really speaks to how fantastic your stories are. Is, man, you always
thanks.
get great artists, and I know you're passionate about having really
Very.
talented artists that are just as engaged with the project as you are. And Stephen Thompson, who's on Masterminds, is a perfect example of that.
He's fantastic. Such a good artist. I mean, to be like honest, like really underrated. I mean, he's done so many awesome things, but his work is just so cinematic and so detailed, and the world building is so insane, and then the characters are so really authentic and real. So I absolutely love working with Steven. I mean, he's one of the few artists I've worked a second time with. I did the Midnight Shadows book with him. That was a book with one of the largest synthwave bands in the world, the Midnight, and absolutely loved working with him. And we wanted to do something that was creator owned. There you go. There's the Midnight. But yeah, I think I learned that early on. I looked up to many creators when I was starting out, but one creator I really looked up to was Rick Remender. And I just learned early on, I can't remember if he said something or it was just watching his process, but teaming up with great artists was a recipe for success. Like, step one, team up with a great artist, and you got to be. And so I really just pushed myself to make sure I was really teaming up with dynamic artists that could, really wow readers, and then creating stories that were perfect for that artist, making sure that, the right artist is on the right story, and then I'm writing to that artist. That's something I really try to do. And I think Steven and Fico and John Pearson and all these different artists that I've worked with, they all couldn't do each other's books. They're all on a book, and I'm writing to their aesthetic. So I think that's very important. But yeah, I love finding great artists and saying, oh my God, I love your style. And I haven't worked with anyone like you yet. And I really want to write something for you. And I have this idea. I mean, I think it's really important to make sure that there's like that synergy there.
Yeah, and a couple of points that I'll make about that. First of all, the fact that you delayed your first book, like, how important was it to get that first book out? But you knew enough to wait until Giovanni had time to do Eclipse with you, which I had so much respect for that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I'll say, everybody out there in the audience, if you want to know exactly what I'm talking about or what Zach's talking about when he says, the right artist, go read Beyond Real, because he has a plethora of artists, because it's a story that takes place in kind of this alternate dimension, and the reality itself is shifting, and so the art style shifts.
Yeah.
And
What
oh
if what if
man,
we're in a simulation, but there's layers of the simulation, and we had 7 different artists draw different layers, and I'll shout them out for you since we've got the time. We had Fabiana Mascola and Jordi Belair do a layer, Tony Vajula, um, Vincenzo Riccardi, Jorge Corona, Liana Kangas, Luana Vecchio, Dennis Menhir, and just absolutely stunning. Every artist there is just so dynamic and distinct, and that was really important. That book was probably the most ambitious book I've done production-wise. It took so long to put together, but that was because we had to find these really unique, incredible artists that could do these different things. So yeah, very proud of that book. The graphic novel's out now, and it's very much about what it means to be a creative. It's a love letter to artists and believing in yourself. And yeah, really, really proud of that book, and everyone who who helped me do it.
Yeah, it's amazing, and we'll get back to it. Well, I have it on the list. We'll talk to.
I'm jumping.
Yeah,
We're jumping all around.
No, which is perfect. Yeah, which is perfectly fine. But
12 days of Christmas. I don't want to throw off the list. What day are we on? We're on day 1 or 2. Let's go.
No, but I want to get back to Midnight Shadows, because it is the book, as you mentioned, that Stephen did with you. You know, he's currently doing Masterminds with you.
Yeah.
And this was so interesting to me because, again, you mentioned the fact that this was kind of a collaboration with one of the biggest synth bands in the world, and you crafted this story that ties in with their music and everything. And I wasn't that familiar with this band, but I knew that you were involved, so I read the graphic novel. I thought it was amazing. I went and listened to some of their music. It's pretty damn cool.
It's so good, right?
Yeah, it definitely has a vibe. And I think you did a good job of capturing that vibe with this story. But again, it just felt so different from a lot of the things that you've done before. So did they approach you or did they approach, like, how did you get involved in the project?
Yeah, it's a crazy story. I actually was friends with Tyler, who is the lead singer of the Midnight, and I was friends with him before he started the band. Wow. We were just friends. I knew he was a musician. He sang under his own name, and he was kind of an indie singer. He did some folk. A great musician. But then one day he was like, "Hey, I started a new band, and we have 6 songs, and we're going to be releasing them soon. You want to hear it?" And he played the Midnight for me, and like my mind was blown. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like, this is it's incredible." And then he went on to stardom with the whole thing, and now like they're huge. And I turned into a fan of my friends' music and listened to them all the time religiously when I was writing. It's one of my go-to albums, or go-to group of albums. I mean, they have so much, but I just listened to it over and over again. We stayed in touch, and he was following my success as a comic creator. And just back and forth, he said, "I love what you're doing." And I made a joke once, like, if you guys ever want to make it was kind of around that time that I knew that I had seen like Z2 was making some music collaboration, graphic novel tie-ins. And I knew that there was stuff out there like that. And I said, if you ever want to make something with the Midnight and comics or a graphic novel, let me know. And they were interested. And so we went from there. And collaborated on kind of coming up with the story and shaped it together. But it was very important to kind of make something that was a reflection of the music, but that stood on its own. We didn't want to like throw them in like Bill and Ted style, and we didn't want to do something that was canon. We wanted to do something that was like, it felt like it was blooming from the music. It was from the music, but it wasn't. You could enjoy this on your own, and like you came to this first, and you were able to just enjoy it, on its own. And it was made to be a bit kind of light and ethereal, I think the level of plot that I put into different series is kind of dependent, and sometimes I put in less and I sometimes put in more depending on, and so this was really important to give the world its feels, to give there just had to be moments where you're just feeling and you're experiencing in there, almost like you could play the soundtrack, play their music to this world. So it was a really beautiful experience to craft this, and we came up with this great team. And it's very much about what it means to grow up and losing yourself in nostalgia and kind of accepting responsibility. And the premise is, the guy's sucked into a video game, but very Tron-esque. But the twist is when he gets there, he's told that he is the character of the game. He never finished it, and he doesn't really want the responsibility of saving the world. Very Peter Pan-esque. Who wants to save the world? That's a pain in the ass. So that was kind of the premise, and really, this book was such a hit with Midnight fans. It's such I sell a ton of this when I go to conventions. It's such a joy for me to sell this book to people who have never heard of the Midnight and then go and find their music. So really, really happy with how this turned out.
Yeah, it's so interesting too, because when I first saw it, like even the cover, everybody, if you're checking us out on YouTube, you see the cover of the graphic novel there, and it immediately gives this Tron vibe.
Yeah.
And that's the vibe that I had before I even dove in and realized, okay, he gets sucked into a video game, and then the world that's crafted, the way that it's colored, and the way that that Steven kind of renders everything, you also get a very Tron vibe, even if you didn't realize what the plot is, and then that idea, those touchstones of growing up and having responsibility, and thinking back fondly when you were a kid and you could just play video games all day. You need to have responsibilities. Like, there's so much there, and then on top of it, having it tie into the music. But like you said, the fact that it can stand on its own, it's not like one of these. And not that there's anything wrong with it, but you remember like those prog rock albums in the '70s where, man, you had to listen to the music, you had to know the story from the music, in order to get And a lot of times it was like in the liner notes and what have you to kind of understand the story. This isn't that. You can come to it from the music, or you can come to it from the graphic novel. I think you guys did a really good job of balancing that kind of for both audiences. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I read a lot of graphic novel, music, comic tie-ins that were out there before doing this book. And it was very important to me to do something that stood on its own a little more and that connected to the music in a more abstract way. And so if you're a fan, you kind of see the connections, or if you go listen to music, you see the connections, but they're just I wanted it to just stand on its own a bit more and have its own kind of themes and its own story. So yeah, very, very happy with it.
Yeah, it's very much additive as opposed to being sort of like codependent. Like, one doesn't depend on the other.
Totally.
Yeah. So you can have a richer experience if you know the music, or if you've read the graphic novel and then come to the music, and vice versa. And certainly it's great. Like what I did when I started reading it, and I was like, let me go listen to some of this music, and then I ended up reading the second half while playing the music.
Great. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. It fits.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, you mentioned another book that I think the final issue came out earlier this year, right? Towards the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and the graphic novel just came out a month and a half ago or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, the graphic novel is out for this one. Yeah.
From Mad Cave, Dark Empty Void. You mentioned it as your first horror book. But I think even beyond that, and this is one of the things that horror does so well, the emotionality. This might be the kind of the most emotional, in almost a traumatic way, story that you've done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, the two main characters are separated.
It's emotional.
They may be going to a divorce. They may reconcile. Get that kind of thing. But again, asking I'll just tell people who are listening, like, it's part horror. It's got a hint of that, but it's also got a bit of that, like, thoughtful sci-fi, like Arrival a little bit. Yep. Like, so it's horror, but it's not like it's interesting, the nuances. It's not grotesque. There's no, like, it's got some scary moments, I suppose, but it's not as horror as some other things, but it's got that. But it's very emotional book. Yeah. Yeah, I think that, like, the horror aspect comes from the unknown, because you're just not really sure. They venture into this, man-made black hole that a woman has emerged from, and they're trying to solve the mystery and figure out how to close the black hole because they're worried that it's going to expand and swallow the earth. So it does have that sci-fi aspect, but again, the idea of trauma and depression being a black hole and that duality, it just, like, this maybe more, as I said, than anything, like, was the one that got me in the feels. I'm like, man, this is almost romance in a way, and kind of how scary that is.
Yeah, you know what? I've been putting some romance in my stories lately. I don't think there's enough well-told romance, or romance as, like, dramatic romance, like conflicted, Eternal Sunshine Under the Spotless Mind, we're not sure which way we're going romance. And so I like putting that kind of stuff in my books. I don't think there's a lot. I think there could be more of it in comics, and definitely this one is about a couple, and you don't know if they're going to make it or not. You don't know if they should make it, and they certainly start at the bottom. And I came up with this idea during the COVID outbreak, and it was very much about, like, and it was black holes as a metaphor for facing tough times in our lives, and facing those moments where you don't know if anything's going to get better, and it kind of occurred to me that that's an interesting aspect for a hero to take in a horror story or in a sci-fi horror adventure story of like, the world is going to end or this is going to turn out bad, and a lot of times we see those characters kind of go, well, not if I can help it. But it's kind of an interesting twist to see the character go, yeah, that is probably going to end up bad for all of us. And this is, and wait a minute, if the heroine doesn't have hope, how are we supposed to have hope? But that becomes then the dramatic engine, is you're hoping to see that she can develop hope, that she can overcome her cynicism. And that's kind of the metaphor for facing depression or facing mental health issues, or facing just that cynicism in a moment of tragedy or in a moment of hardship where you're trying to, how are we going to get out of this? So yeah, definitely channeled a lot of feels in this book, and I'm glad to hear everybody caught them for sure.
Well, the other thing is, the courage that she exhibits, which kind of, in a way, I'll use the word, infects or maybe reminds her estranged husband of who she is and maybe why he fell in love with her in the first place, because they go into this situation where it's the unknown, right? That's the fear.
Right.
She's willing to have an open mind and try to communicate with these, with these other beings and what have you, these other entities. Whereas there's others in the story that are not that way, right? They're closed-minded, right. They're kind of cliched in a way, and they don't understand something. They just want to shoot first and ask questions later, which is very, I get that parallel with COVID, right? And ultimately, that's kind of the thing that saves the day, if you yep. will, her open-mindedness as opposed to others. And I like that, because that's a message that we all could use a little bit more of. Like, hey, maybe shut up and try to listen for a second, or communicate instead of lashing out. I don't feel like we have enough of that in the world these days. So that's a good message as well. But it wasn't overt, but it was there if you kind of looked for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I genuinely feel that like there's a moment, I think, where they're talking about, they're talking to like the head honcho of the company who the tech company who's run this project, the secret experiment project, and he says, is this a threat, or is this a first contact? Well, what is this moment? And she kind of says something like, it depends how we look at it,
right?
And I really think that there is, like in life, if you're facing a challenge, if you perceive it as a danger and a threat, that's what it's going to be to you. And if you perceive it as an opportunity and a chance to come through something in a positive way, that's what it can be for you too. I really do believe that these situations in our lives are subjective, and they are dependent about the approach we take. And so, yeah, she's very admirable. She's just completely at the bottom of her, she's messed up when we meet her, and we kind of love that she's ready to go in, even though she's at her worst. And then she approaches it with this kind of conflicted attitude, but in part she finds these moments to bring that hope. And it's a beautiful book too. Chris Sheehan does an excellent job of characterizing her and bringing her performance to life. And Francisco Segala on colors, he's just such a fantastic colorist. He really makes the world of this black hole feel ethereal and dynamic. And this is a very claustrophobic book that takes place almost entirely underground and subterranean tunnels, and very kind of like could have gone the wrong way, just in terms of being a boring thing to look at, because you're like just in tunnels and in spacesuits the whole time. And they both did an incredible job of just making it beautiful to look at one moment after another.
Yeah, no doubt. The art really pops off the page because yeah, you're right. It could have been much more morose and kind of muddy. Yeah, because she is very much kind of at the bottom of the black hole in a way. Her depression with her failed marriage and what have you. When we meet her, and it's almost like she agrees to help because she feels like I got nothing to lose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the journey she goes on is, again, I think it's heartfelt and it's relatable, and it's somebody definitely easy to root for.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I mentioned Kill All Immortals. We're on the second volume of this from Dark Horse, which, you have Immortal Vikings, you have not only Immortal Vikings, but other Immortals, kind of running these mega corporations, Succession in a way, I think is how you described it.
Yeah.
So, spoilers, everybody. If you haven't read the first volume, you need to go and check it out. But I will kind of spoil at the end. The main group here, they give up their immortality. Well, not necessarily by, not all of them by choice. The kind of the children decide, hey, this is not what we should be doing. And now with the second volume, they no longer have the immortality, but there are other families that still do. So they're in a very tough position. And I didn't think you could really crank the action up beyond what we got in volume one, and yet here we are.
Oh yeah.
And this is just an incredible. It's got to be, I imagine, a lot of fun to just write these incredible, over-the-top fight scenes where people are losing body parts left and right, and there's sword fights and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, this is a fantastic action book. We've got Fico Ossio just doing some incredible action, and Thiago Rocha just brings so much color and life to these action scenes. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think that the stakes are really, as you said, ratcheted up because, what if Immortals didn't have their immortality anymore? And now they're going up against other Immortals. So the danger and the peril is at an all-time high. And I think that makes it really kind of fun to watch. And I think, or read. And I think we really are trying to make Frey a character that people can gravitate to and connect to, we've said again and again, very much kind of like in an Erica Slaughter way. And, I think that's because she's a badass action hero, but she's got so much drama and conflict that's pulling her in different directions. Like her story is very rich. You don't know if she should be immortal or should she be mortal. You don't know if she should be facing this challenge or running from it. She's thrown back in this new arc. She's thrown back into things with her family, and her family is very much not in a good place. And just continues to evolve her story. And I love this kind of storytelling. I mean, I've always loved long form storytelling because you really get to take a character and you build one character arc in one volume, and then you take that growth and you get to completely torpedo it or throw it at 90 degrees, and that's the complexity of life. We as people don't change just once and then everything's okay. We continue to get tested. We continue to have to dig deeper. That's the kind of storytelling that I first did with Eclipse that you love so much, and that readers have found over the years. And so this is really my after Eclipse and Port of Earth, I haven't done long form storytelling in many years. So it's been a real joy to kind of come back and dig deeper. So I'm really excited that readers are getting a chance to experience the second arc, because the second arc really does get to kind of take Frey through the paces and really give readers a kind of a rich experience of kind of her story.
Yeah, I mean, she's already we first meet her and she's kind of estranged herself from her family. She she doesn't want all the material trappings that they've amassed just from being alive for so long.
Yeah.
And running this mega corporation. She's out there, on a Peace Corps thing, trying to help out, get sucked back in. And then with her kind of driving that decision to give up the immortality for the family, it seems like when this one starts, she's tried to put that behind her and make the world a better place. But like you said, she gets sucked back in, and I can't wait to see where it's going to take her this time. Because at the end of the day, one of the themes of Kill All Immortals is the fact that you might be able to choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. And
sure,
like it or not, like them or not, there's love there. There's a connection. There's, that familiar responsibility that kind of runs through.
I mean, that's there's kind of an old thing that, like, when you have a criminal in your story and we're supposed to root for them, they have to be different than all the other criminals. They're the criminal with a heart of gold. And so in a world where there are many immortals, the one thing that makes these Vikings different is they have family. They have this connection that's different than the other immortals. And that's kind of why we love the Asvalds in a weird way, and we want to see them succeed, and we certainly want to see Frey succeed, but we're not sure they should succeed yet because their father is still a terrible menace. But I struggle with kind of definitely where we are in the world. It's kind of like, how do you confront some of the dangers that we face, and this and that. And I think that there's this kind of like, Frey is torn between maintaining her own ideals and her own morality and kind of being the better person, or being just as bad as the villains that she faces. And she's not sure, should she be human and emotionally connected and mortal and ordinary, or should she be extraordinary? Should she be ruthless and cutthroat and murderous, or should she be above it all? And how do you face a world of other immortals, and who should she be? And does she accept the agency that she's been given, or does she run from it? And I think that that's what's so interesting, is the whole first volume is about her, after almost a millennia, confronting her family to say, I don't want to be this way, and almost I want to fully reject my agency, only to then come back and realize, wait a minute, I might need to accept my agency, but then what does that make me? And how do I reconcile with the fact that to confront these situations, do I have to be a terrible person too? And so it's complicated, and I don't have the answers, but I certainly love that sort of complexity for a character. So it's really a lot of fun to kind of dig in with her and expand it all in the second arc.
Yeah, I mean, she cares so much, and it's like, okay,
much.
Yeah, I care so much. I want to make the world a better place, but in order to make the world a better place, I have to become the villain. I have to do terrible things, like,
yeah,
and justify the means. I mean, that's just that's such a fascinating question that really doesn't have an answer, because every situation and every person is going to be different.
Totally. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun. And then of course we get to do all the fun stuff in a sequel or a second volume, which is expand the world, expand the characters. People have picked up the second issue, have already gotten to see some of our new immortals and seen some new world building and some new twists on the mythology of it all. And just really having a blast with this book, and taking our time to make sure we get it right, and continue to build on what we did so far. So been a lot of fun to bring it back.
Yeah, when we talk about the Oswald clan themselves, they're all immortal. The father kind of Eric.
Yeah, when we meet in the beginning, yeah.
Yeah, and they're so different. Their personalities are so different. How did it take a long time to kind of flesh that out? Did you know that right from the beginning? Because I imagine as we continue the second volume, we're going to get a little bit of insight into how maybe immortality has affected others in other kind of clans and families.
Yeah.
But for this one, for them to be so different, that's the thing that struck me. They're all so. I mean, even if it wasn't, they weren't so differentiated by the art from Fico, you could just read the dialogue and know which one's talking, because their personalities are so different.
Well, I think it like, for me, in terms of creating characters, sometimes you start with the flat surface and then you delve deeper. I did research, and spoiler alert, and we already said spoiler alert. I mean, this is Eric the Red and his 4 adult children, and he had 4 adult children named Thorstein, Thor, and Leaf, and Frey. And so these are the names of his children. And so looking at their ages, looking at, one's named Thor, he's the big guy, of course. One's named Leaf. We've all know of Eric's son, Leif Erikson. So, he's clearly the more perfect one. The baby of the group is clearly the runt of the litter. So it doesn't take a lot to kind of imagine certain stereotypes. But I think then where the storytelling work comes in is what you do is you say, okay, so we have our stereotypes, but how, if we were to delve deep with these characters, how does the pressures of being immortal in these different roles weigh on them? If you are the big brooding hulk of a man, what is asked of you for centuries? You're asked to be nothing but just a murderous, hand. And how does that weigh on you? And that weighs on Thor very differently than it weighs on Leaf. Leaf, who by all accounts should be inheriting the throne, but he will never get to have his own identity because he's always living in his father's shadow, and he has to continue to do everything perfect to never be given the recognition himself, you know. And then you have Stein, who's basically last. So how does it feel to never be able to live up to anything and always be second best? And what sort of cynicism or nihilism does that create in a person? So just fleshing out their different drives and their different fears as secondary characters, and then that gives me as a writer a lot to kind of play with, so that as Frey is dealing with them one-on-one, you realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a family. Frey has a very different relationship with Thor than she has with Leaf. Leaf, she's very competitive with him because they're both very smart. With Thor, they come from a much more sensitive place. With Stein, they come from a much more philosophical, cynical, rebellious place. And so she has all these different strengths with each sibling, and she has all these different weaknesses with each sibling. And the whole first volume is built on her engaging with and challenging her family. So, exploring those. And that was kind of, I think, one of the really most important things, because you've got a story about immortals fighting each other, so no one's going to die. So the suspense of the fights in the first volume is taken out to some degree. So the suspense comes not from like, well, who's going to win, but who's going to win emotionally, who's going to win the rational debate of how we should approach life. They're literally fighting and arguing over the fate of their family and over the fate of their immortality and their lives. And so that's what those fights become about. They're abstract. And so, I mean, I love that sort of character work, and I love putting the time in to flesh it out. And I think it makes for a far richer story, and it gives readers a real sense of this family and who each of them are. And now they're out of the frying pan into the fire, because all they did was take away their immortality, and now they're being attacked by a whole new, immortal threat. So what the hell do they do now? So it's great.
It's fair to say that maybe Frey didn't think it through.
No.
Well, I remember, I think it was maybe the second issue out. Sometime, I think it was the first time that you and I got a chance to talk about this after it had come out, and you had mentioned that you were hoping that it was selling really well. The first couple of issues sold really well, and that you were really happy about that, because you did have kind of a longer plan for this. So do you know, obviously depending on sales and continuing to sell well, so fingers crossed. But do you have an idea of how many volumes to tell the complete story?
We don't, and I think it's very dependent on how it continues to do with readers. I mean, so far we're off to a good start, but we have to maintain a successful, sought-after series. Very much intending and hoping to take this more and do more, but how much more is too soon to say right now. But definitely, I know where I want to go with the story for sure. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, kind of almost the most traditionally comic book thing you've done in terms of this is like all out action, everybody. So again, as much as I recommend everything Zach does, and if you want action, if you want nonstop and gorgeous art, like this is the book for you. If you've never read anything that Zach's done, this is a perfect kind of entry point into his work.
I also felt it's interesting, Jace, because I feel like there are some books that are out there like this. Like it's such a action hero, like it's so down the line, but you got your Erica Slaughter, you got some things like Geiger and a few things out there like this. But I feel like there have been eras in comics where there have been more of this, and I feel like there might be a little less of this right now. And so I'm excited to attract readers who are like, yeah, we want an action. We want some great action. We want a character that we can come back to again and again. So, we're really hoping to continue to draw people to this story who are looking for that kind of staple in comics.
Yeah, I would say, like specifically, if you're a fan of Greg Rucka's Lazarus that he does with Michael Lark,
Yep.
which only comes out like 4 times a year now, they do it quarterly. You know, in terms of kind of the family dynamic and these kind of ruling families, it's got a little bit of that as well. But the action, that's a little bit more kind of political. This is more kind of in your face action, which I love. But definitely both worth checking out. Well, we talked a little bit about Beyond Real already, and you know, it kind of does a little bit dovetail into what we're talking about with Kill All Immortals in terms of searching for identity. Who are you? These different relationships and what have you. You kind of talked about Beyond Real earlier, and the idea of it, you know, the reality being a simulation and what's real and what's not. And like you mentioned, it being the most ambitious project you've done. And,
production wise, yeah.
And yeah, I go back and this is a book that I think I'll be going back and reading it periodically, probably once a year or whatever, because it has so much to say.
Thank you.
Ambitious production wise, but also I think in terms of, again, the emotionality, kind of similar to, you know, what we were talking about before with Dark Empty Void. I sort of feel like, and I mean, I just trying to kind of put myself in your shoes, that the emotionality of this, writing it, like, what was that experience like? Did you come out the other side like, oh man, I just ran a marathon?
I mean, yeah, this is one of my most emotional books as well. I mean, it's a love story. It's a traumatic story. It's also about a character who starts off really a lost soul and really kind of an emotional mess, very emotionally messy. Yeah, I think it wasn't hard to get into this character, though. I think that I have this character inside of me somewhere, and you know, I pull it all together, but I am a creative and an artist, so I know what it feels like to go through these sorts of feelings of doubt and insecurity, and I think it was good to channel all of that into June, and to see June struggle. And she's a very hurt and angry and cynical person, and she wants to make her mark on the world. She wants to be an artist, and she wants to do something meaningful, and she's filled with doubt, and she's got the voices of her teachers and her family and her friends who have told her she can't succeed. And the one thing that she has in life is ripped away from her early on in the story, and she goes on a very much like a Wizard of Oz sort of journey to see if she can get it back. But it's really more about finding herself. And it was always meant to be a very emotional story. It's kind of funny because, like, a lot of times these stories will be characterized early on, like in pitches or things and so this was a sci-fi adventure because she goes on an adventure. Like, anytime a character goes from point A to point B, physically, that's an adventure. But it was very much a emotional adventure. I mean, literally the places that she's going reflect different emotional conflicts within her. It's very metaphysical. It's very surreal. And I think that was my favorite part about writing it, even more than the emotionality, was just how surrealist it was. And then pushing each of these artists to just be as surrealist and out there. And I think they all rose to the occasion, but they all needed to be pushed, you know, through at the layout phase, at that early phase, to tell all of them, this is not a typical book, and you should play with the layouts, play with the form, find ways to make this feel more artistic. So I think that was one thing I was most proud of on this book, is that collaborative spirit to find the metaphysical and the abstract and the surreal in this.
Yeah, what's so interesting and what I love about it, and you kind of touched on it, you know, when you said there's a little bit of you know, yourself in June and vice versa. I mean, I know so many creatives. Like, doing this as long as I have, I've become friends with so many creative people, and you guys all have that self-doubt in you. You know, that little bit of that imposter syndrome. Do I really should I really be doing this? You know, am I really deserving of the critical acclaim or you know, the success or whatever? So I'll say this to everybody out there in the audience: if you know a creative they all seem to have that gene. This is the book that you give them to let them know, hey, you're not alone. You're not alone. You know what I mean? And not just creatives. I mean, we all have self doubt. You know, we all struggle at times with our different roles and what have you.
Yeah.
But this is a story about, facing that and coming through the other side.
That would give me such joy to hear that someone who's creative and artistic who has had these feelings read this book and it gave them just 1% of hope and optimism. That would be a real Christmas present. So yes, I hope there are some readers that either check this book out or let someone else know about it.
Yeah, again, it's fantastic. I feel like it's the book that every creator should read, 100%. Well, this is the one I want to kind of end on, and we'll talk a little bit about some Christmas traditions and what have you, but I got to touch on this one because it's one that I keep coming back to, this idea of mind control, this idea of identity, which does seem to permeate a lot of your work. And you mentioned John J. Pearson earlier, one of the artists that you have collaborated with in the past, and he's the one that does the art on this, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But man, this book, it's so, you almost should have called it mind bend because it's so mind bending, and the idea of, much like Freya, does the end justify the means?
Yeah,
these guys, they have the best of intentions.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that I like. So what's interesting is like, we'll get into mine in a second, but like, you've been following my work for 9 or 10 years. And so since I started, and you're saying, like, I keep trying all these different genres and I keep doing these new different things. But I feel, having looked at my own work for many years, that the things that start to feel similar to a Zack Kaplan book is these themes, is the same topics. And one of the topics that I love to write about is, do we live in a world of ideals? Ideals like freedom, justice, hard work, determination, all these things, and I don't know that we do. And so do the ends justify the means? Well, it seems that the victor is the one that gets the spoils, and history is written by the winners. And so, yeah, Mindset or Kill All Immortals seem to both kind of explore and Masterminds too. Are we playing the game, or are we creating the game? Are you a sheep in the game? And so this is kind of something that, this is just a topic that I love to, I mean, gosh, Port of Earth was that premise as far as the entire planet is concerned. Here we are thinking that we're on top, and then we're introduced to a galaxy where there are all sorts of different planets and different groups, and we make a deal, and all of a sudden we've been completely taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And it's like, wait a minute, do we tolerate the deal? Do we accept things, or do we or not? So I think a lot of times it's kind of about, how do we maintain our humanity and our morality in a world that does not seem to play by those rules? And so, yeah, Mindset is very much about that for sure.
Yeah, so for anybody that's not familiar, kind of give them the elevator pitch, coming up with this app that's...
Yeah, a group of grad students discover a real form of mind control. It's just a few lights and sounds that combined at the right time will give someone a little bit of a zap if they see and hear this, and then they are susceptible to mind control for a period of time. But they have intentions to do something honorable, and they're going to put it in a meditation app, which is going to free us from our addiction to our devices and maybe help to empower us in life a little bit better. It doesn't go according to plan. Their app ends up getting a billion followers, and they realize they're not helping everyone, but they're controlling everyone. And it's very much a murder mystery. The main character's investor is dead, and he's wanted for the murder, and you don't know who's controlling who. And it's one big mind fuck the whole time about what's really going on and who's controlling who, as one would expect in a mind control thriller. But it's very much about our relationship with technology and Silicon Valley and good intentions versus capitalism and corporatization, which when I came up with this a few years ago felt like it was less obvious than it is now.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
when this came out in 22, but I came up with this in like 2019, 2020 or so, and it was kind of like, does everyone see this?
Yeah.
And now it's like, oh, everyone sees this.
Yeah.
Everyone totally sees this. So yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of layers to it, but the main character is a really good intentioned young grad student who does want, who looked up to Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all of these guys and wanted to do something with technology that improved the world, and is kind of looking at the landscape saying, what happened? How come everything is about money in technology and in Silicon Valley, and oh, I found something, but I can do some good with it. And can he? You know, you have to read to find out. But yeah, very much about kind of that quest to do good in a world that might not be good.
Yeah, there's such a dichotomous insidiousness to technology, right? Like, it's the whole idea of technology to bring us closer together, you know, make the world a smaller place, to make us feel more connected. But on the other hand, you go too far, and then instead of being connected, we're all just staring at our device. You know, we're sitting in the same room, we're staring at our screen, or even texting back and forth. Where you know, I could just talk to you. You're 2 feet away from me.
I mean, yeah, we're all addicted to our phones, and we all doom scroll. And I put all of this in this story. I mean, the story tells you the reason you're doom scrolling. You know, like, you will be at work and you suddenly find that you have your phone in your hand and you are doom scrolling. You don't even know what you're looking for or why. You're just doing it. I'll tell you why. You were mind controlled by the Mindset app, and you have been, and you don't know it, but it planted the idea that you are going to come back to it. You have been made to come back to your phone on repeat. You don't even know it. But the funny thing is, that's actually exactly what has happened to us all, because we have all been told that these companies have spent millions and millions of dollars to engineer the exact displays and sounds and experiences to make us come back again and again for screen time. So it's actually exactly what has happened. We've been programmed by our devices, and this all happened in a decade. I mean, our kids don't know this, but like 10, 15 years ago, we did not have smartphones. We were not scrolling all the time on our phones. You know, this idea that you would be at dinner with the phone in your hand and you can't put it in your pocket, like, that's new. And so, yeah, it's very much about that. And I think it's really funny that we all hear this and we all kind of laugh.
Yeah, it's not
we all
that far.
like,
yeah.
You go, yeah, that's right. We are all addicted to our phones. And it's all good. So.
Yeah, it's so funny. The other day, my wife was going through some old boxes, and she came across some of my old cell phones, and my daughter was like, "Oh, I want to take one of them." I was like, "What? This old decrepit thing or whatever?"
Yeah.
The reason she wanted it is so when she goes into class and they have this little like thing that hangs on the wall, they're all supposed to put their phones in there.
They won't let them keep their phone.
Yeah. She wanted a dummy phone to put in there so she could keep her real phone on her.
Oh my God, she's trying to game the system.
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, everybody. Zach's body of work speaks for itself. It's absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
I recommend all these books that we talked about, plus more. You can't go wrong with reading some of the stuff Zach has done. I just think, again, it engenders these conversations and really interesting and relatable topics. So as we're winding down here, Zach, though, you have a couple of young daughters of your own. I got to ask what Christmas traditions, what's Christmas like over there at the Kaplan household?
I got a daughter and a son, and we do a little bit of Christmas. We do a little bit of Hanukkah, as I am Jewish, and I don't know. It's festive. I'm looking forward to some downtime. We're gonna watch Home Alone for sure and laugh our asses off. And I don't know. I love the holidays because it's really a chance to wind down and slow down. I find that comics is and just the entertainment industry is just a real nonstop sort of grind, whether you're hustling to get ahead or you're trying to stay ahead, you're working not enough or too much, you're always working. Everyone I meet in comics is exhausted. And if you're listening to this, I'm sure you are enough of a comics fan to kind of, if you don't know that, then let me tell you, it's just the way there's just not enough resources or time to do everything that comics creators do. And I don't think that people laugh about, comics and the little amount of money that's in it, but everyone that's making comics is doing it for the love of comics. And I'm very rewarded by making comics, but I love to just end the year in a few weeks and get just a week or two of downtime, and then it all starts over again. So I'm looking forward to that break. And then 2026 is right around the corner. I've got a ton of exciting new things coming towards everyone. And looking forward to the new year.
Yeah, it is interesting the way the industry goes toward the end of the year, because you mentioned, not having enough time. Part of what you do, especially creator-owned stuff, independent stuff, is you have to be your own marketing team. Not that the big two have big marketing teams anymore either, but it's so interesting because they always try to get all the deadlines come up and get everything done before the end of the year. And like by the second week of December, like it's impossible to get a hold of anybody over at DC because they're kind of like pencils down,
sure.
which is great for everybody to get some time off. I feel like it's less so for guys that are in your position because it's a little bit more. You have to be a little bit more self-reliant, but it is good to hear that you're.
I mean, I'll be working a little bit, but I think that it's so important to not let work consume your life.
Yeah.
And no matter how ambitious or busy we all are, I hope if any comic creators are out there listening and they're overworked, that they remember to just do themselves a favor and take a break and enjoy some downtime, especially on the holidays. There's really just nothing more important than getting a chance to have a breath and be grateful for everything you've been working towards. So, and enjoy other things in life. So I hope.
It's a perfect time for it, because at the end of the year, you can reflect back on, what you've accomplished this year, what you're looking forward to doing in the new year. And it's just a time to take some time off to spend with friends and family. That's
absolutely.
That's important. Well, we'll finish with this. I mentioned I was going to ask about licensed work, and you have done some stuff with DC in the past, and you mentioned having some stuff.
Between you and me, we're friends. I don't really consider that one as counting.
All right,
to be honest.
And I totally get that. And we've had
that really wasn't. I did co-script to Nightwing titles. It really wasn't my work. Scott Lobdell was the architect of that story. I was given artwork, and I came up with a few lines. Some of those lines were rewritten. So I just it's when you're looking at my work and you're saying like, well, what is indicative of Zack Kaplan? I did participate in writing 2 Nightwing issues, but I don't really consider it to be my voice or my work.
Which is fair, but I know you have your followers and they're probably curious. Is that something that might be in the future for you, or you still want to keep doing?
I would absolutely be open to it if it was the right story. I would absolutely love to. There have been some amazing comic creators right now who have who are new to Marvel or DC, who have been telling fantastic stories. I think Marvel and DC have been doing some great things right now. But I think it really works when you find the right creator, you put them on the right title, and you give them the freedom that they deserve to tell a story that's true to them. I would absolutely be up for that, but that opportunity has not found me, and I'm not interested in pushing the wrong opportunity. As I said,
that's fair.
So yeah, we'll see. I've no secret updates that are right around the corner. So time will tell.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it myself because I love what you do now. And I wouldn't want you to have to compromise, you know, and I'm sure you feel the same way. But at the same time, I want more people to read your work. And if you did a run on, you know, Batman or Green Lantern or Spider-Man or whatever, more people would find your work. So I want that for you.
Yeah.
But I totally get it.
Tell the editors.
Yeah.
Tell the editors.
Yeah. But
You know?
I do agree that Marvel and DC are doing some really great things right now, and I'm especially really happy with the success of the Absolute line, because what it's shown, and I know this from having conversations with some higher ups, the fact that it did so well, and it was a big swing and a bit of a risk, but the fact that it did so well, now they're a little more open to allowing a little more creative freedom and more risks because it's paid off. So hopefully that'll open the doors for
from
others.
your lips, you know.
Yeah. So hopefully it all works out. Well, remind everybody where they can find you. Your
I'll tell you one more
newsletter.
thing real quick, since we're
Yeah,
for
go ahead.
Christmas. I had the pleasure of doing my first Boom Comics experience. I have a short story in Hello Darkness 17, which comes out later this month, right around the holidays. And it's a short story with Dennis Menhier, who was one of my artists on Beyond Real. That story is called Recollect. But if you like Hello Darkness, it's a very cool sci-fi horror anthology. It's just a short in that anthology, but I'm excited for people to check that out. And then, more Kill All Immortals and 2 and Masterminds coming your way. And you guys can find out about all of it by following me online at Zack Kaps. Or I have a website, zackkaplan.com. And yeah, that's where to find me.
Yeah, I'll put links to the social media and the website in the show notes as always, everybody. So if you're having trouble finding Zach, you can go there. Well, happy holidays, Zach. Best seeing
Happy
your
holidays,
family.
Jace. Yeah, same to you.
I really appreciate you taking the time. And to everybody out there joining us, you know, whether you're checking us out on YouTube or the audio only, we really appreciate it. Zach and I want to wish you all happy holidays. Hope it's healthy and fun and
Indeed
and relaxing. So
yes,
yeah, 100%. So that's going to do it for this episode, everybody. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.